You're very welcome along to the Zoom room. This is Johnny Ward with Davy Russell and Bill ESDAILE on Star Sports TV. And because we're not trained by Nicky Henderson, we've all turned up and we're going to talk Sandown and Aintree on today's show. And do remember, if you're beating half a length or less over jumps, pipped at the post, up to a nifty 50 quid, we will give you your money back. Davy Russell, I have to mention Nicky Henderson. The stars aren't turning up. You're a racing man. Do you defend them or do you say, come on, Nicky, get your act together?
No, I'm in the camp of Nicky has to train his horses and not anybody else's. And if he's not happy with his horse, or if there's a reason there, the one thing that constantly turns up is Nicky Henderson trains a lot of very big winners. And there'll be a reason behind that. And he's the man that knows the reason. And I would be going with his judgment rather than just running horses for the sake of running them. Because if you were a punter and you fancied Shishkin on Saturday and after the race you found out that Nicky Henderson wasn't 100% happy with him before the race, you'd say, why did you run him? You know, so he's in a no-win situation, but I tell you what he does have. He has an unbeaten, very, very classy horse at the moment, and I'd say he'll try and keep it that way for as long as he can.
That's why Davy has a great future once he finishes up as a jockey, Bill. The man talks a lot of sense, and you can actually see both sides of the argument here.
Yeah, well, I agree with Davy. I think that it's been a storm in a teacup, but the guy is a genius trainer. He's a Hall of Fame trainer, as they say, and he's that for a reason. And if he doesn't feel the horse is right, he's actually changed his kind of mindset and come out with it well in advance to say the horse isn't pleasing him. And it's not about. And I've heard people saying, oh, it's his fault for not training the horse right. It's not that they're animals and the horse isn't flying and the horse isn't right and you can't go to war with him. It's I just don't understand it. I think it's all a bit blown out of proportion, and I think he's got every right not to run his horse.
I actually think that there is no man standing in a pair of shoe leathers would want to beat Willie Mullins or will say the rest of the field than Nicky Henderson. And if he doesn't feel he can beat him, then he just doesn't have to run, you know.
And in fairness, the fact that Jacques Poursois comes over for the Tingle Creek, it's actually an unbelievable race. And maybe Nicky's just a little bit bruised by experiences with the Altior in the past. But we're going to get Davy and his rides at Navan and, of course, Tiger Roll, who's running at Aintree. There's only one place to start there, Jacques Poursois. Bill, this was threatened to be a bit of a dud of a race. It's nothing but a dud at all, actually, and it actually looks like something of a re-renewal of the Champion Stakes. I'm just going to put in the betting for the Tingle Creek as we have it here on Star Sports. It's even money, Jacques Poursois, 9 for Nube Negra. Obviously, they're clashing again from their Champion Stakes, from their Champion Chase forms. Grenadine 5-1 under Bryony Frost has been in the news so much this week. 12-1 Captain Guinness coming over from Ireland Race Face. Hitman 14-1. Where do we start, Bill?
Well, we have to start with Jacques Poursois. He's the obvious place. As much as you want to take him on, he was brilliant. He's rated 176
under Patrick Mullins.
Under Patrick Mullins, which is, I think, is a good thing. I think the horse showed at Punchestown that he's a proper monster, and he put good horses to the sword. He dispelled the myth that he has to be held on to, and what he'd find after the last. If he's in anywhere near that form and he's run really well fresh in the past, I think he'll win. Nuba Negra was arguably unlucky in the Champion Chase at Cheltenham last year and looked in really good health on his reappearance at the November meeting at Cheltenham. But, you know, he was well and truly put to the sword by Jacques Poursois in Punchestown and doesn't, you know, he's best fresh. Dan has said that he's best fresh, and there's only 30 days or whatever, or 20 days, I think it is, since that Cheltenham win. So I would be all about Jacques Poursois. I'd be very disappointed if he doesn't win. I think the others aren't necessarily in the same class as him, and I think he is the one.
He's rated 176, Davy, and I imagine a lot of you in Navan will be trying to look at any TV screen to see the big race at Sandown, because this will be a bit of a cracker.
Yeah, no, an exceptional race. It's, you know, Sandown is a place in itself that with them railway fences down the back, it's, you know,
some spectacle, isn't it? It's
a great spectacle. It's a pleasure to ride a really good jumper down over them, and I would feel that's what Patrick is going to get a feeling of that on Saturday. He's the best horse in the race. Willie's horses that are coming out and they're in good form, you know, I'd say there'll be plenty of juice in the ground for him. I think, you know, like Captain Guinness and Nuba Negra, they're all going to be good challengers, but they're not good enough to beat him. If he shows what he showed us in Punchestown, then he's just a class above them.
And it did look, I know it's all easy in hindsight, but it did look like in Cheltenham that they almost bought into the worry about him getting up the hill because they rode him so positively at Punchestown and there wasn't a bother on him.
Yeah, that's right. They completely changed tactics back to the way they were, and it worked a treat. You know, he can put them all to the sword. You know.
What do you make of Grenadine? Obviously, it'd be quite the story, Bill, if Bryony were to win here. This horse, obviously, rate 167, would have to step up as well to beat Shackleton Poursois, you'd imagine, despite obviously that victory here over Altior in April.
Yeah, he was very good against Altior that day, and he obviously needed the run extra. But you know, Davey touched on it. You know, this Shackleton Poursois is a class act, and he probably has to run 5 to 10 pounds below his best, and something step up 5 pounds for the two to meet. I would just be very surprised if your Grenadines and Captain Guinnesses can on Hitman can mix it with Shackleton Poursois. The key is the Sandown Hill and whether Nuba Negra can come and reel him back, and you know, the prices I think Shackleton Poursois will end up odds on if I'm truthful. I think he'll be very popular on the day, and I think he'll win.
What do you make of Davy Russell? What do you make of Patrick Mullins riding him, Davy?
Yeah, well, he rode him in the past, so he knows the horse well. He'd known him well from home. His record when he does take them rides, you know, is quite good. So just give me 1 second with a little jockey creeping in.
I thought that was going to be Patrick Mullins that you're going to bring into the screen.
No, that's Liam.
Who's the jockey here, Davy?
That's Liam.
Liam claiming 10 at the moment.
Yeah, it's great. Only claiming 10 for his stable. Yeah.
Do you want to ride Shackleton Poursois, Liam?
No. What horse? What's your favourite horse? Liam, what's your favourite horse?
Hokey.
Hokey, yeah. But what's your favourite race horse?
Tyrone.
Yeah.
Well, Liam's going to have to wait for the rest of the show then, because we're going to be talking about your favourite horse, and he's actually many people's favourite horse, and I think Shackleton Poursois will be many people's favourite horse as well on Saturday, because he probably should win. Davy, I want your opinion on Third Time Lucky. He's an Arcadio gelding, which wouldn't be for everyone's cup of tea, but he's been brilliant over fence so far, and he is very, very short price favourite in the Henry VIII Novices Chase.
Yeah, his jumping is fantastic. As a novice, he seems to be, you know, step ahead of the rest jumping wise. This will be his stiffest test. He hasn't really been tested yet. I'd like to wait until after Saturday before I'd be making any judgments on him for the likes of Cheltenham and all them other races. But look, he is a very nice horse. There are some very, very nice horses in this race, so it'll be a true test. I think the 1.7 and 119 yards is the right trip for him. I just be worried about him getting into a real dour 2 mile flat to the boards.
Typical fast Arcadio.
Yeah, it's just a slight worry that when he'd get into a really, really competitive race, if he was taken on from a long way out, whether he would have the real stamina that is needed to win these championship races.
We'll have each extra markets and match bets. Now, it's over the weekend. It's unfortunate, Bill, that there aren't 8 runners in this race, because I think there are definitely grounds for taking on this favourite. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I think he is take-onable. He reminds me, even though he's an older horse, he reminds me of the 4-year-old they won it with last year, All Mankind. He's that type of horse that could catch me if you can. You know, a few people thought he might have been in trouble at Cheltenham last time when he was potentially tiring and the horse fell in behind him. Interestingly, he's the only 4-year-old in this race is Il Rodotto, who was super impressive at Newbury last weekend. And there were 3 4-year-olds in the race 12 months ago, and they finished first, second, and third, because they do get a nice kind of £6 allowance. And Il Rodotto has loads to find on the form book, but he won so well at Newbury, and Paul Nicholls brings him straight back out. He's 8, 9, 10 to 1. He's a big price against these. And obviously, you look at the flashy types like Third Time Lucky and Edwardstone. They're the obvious ones. They look like they're the kind of grade 1 chasers. But if they go really hard, and like Davey says, and they get racing very, very early, it might set it up for a closer. And Il Rodotto travelled into the race. He looked in trouble at halfway at Newbury last weekend, and then came there swinging late on. He might be the last challenger with his lightweight at kind of 8, 9 to 1. And I thought I couldn't really separate Third Time Lucky and Edwardstone. I think they're the most likely 1, 2. But I would, my selection would be Il Rodotto each way at a double figure price if you can get it.
And I love the way Bill tells you not only not only what will win, but how the horse actually will win and how the race will be run. And that's, I think, how you have to solve races at decent prices as well. Come up with a plan as to how the race will be run. We're really getting to Liam's favourite horse. Going to go to the 240 at Aintree, which is the Becher Chase. And I'll stay with you on this, Bill, because I know you're a fan of this. Chris's Dream, quite ground reliant. There will be a bit of an ease in the ground at Aintree.
Yeah, this is the Becher Chase over the Grand National fences. It's a real test, and there's a few old favourites, and VIII Rouge is back, at the age of 12, and the handicap has given him another squeak. I thought this was a fiercely tough race. Matt Totti will be likely fighting out favouritism with Snow Leopardess, Charlie Longston's horse. Matt Totti was good over these fences last month, and threatens to be even better staying up. I probably prefer him of the leading fancies, but from a selection point of view, I will go. My first start will be Chris's Dream, the top one you mentioned. Henry de Bromhead's horse was travelling really well in the Grand National when he unseated last time. He's he's got top weight here, but he's got a couple of pounds off his back. I thought John Joe Neal Jr. rides him. I thought I would just take a chance with him because he's the class act. There's plenty of rain around Liverpool. It's already soft. There's rain, I think, Friday. There's rain Saturday. So he's going to get his ground. He's got a big weight to carry around, but Chris's Dream, the Irish Raider, would be one of my selections. And the other selection I would go for would be another Irish horse, Tue Permis, Noel Mead's horse that feels like he's a 12-year-old. He's actually only 8.
3 years since he won the Troy Town as a 5-year-old.
Yeah, 3 years since the Troy Town, and actually he ran okay behind. He was chasing Davy Russell Shadows on Run Wild Fred last time, but he was plugging on over 3 miles. This is a bit further, 3 miles too. Had the experience of the Grand National fences off an impossible mark last year, but he comes here. That was 155 in the Grand National. Races here off 150, which is just a pound higher than his Irish mark. Good kid taking the 5 pounds off. So he's in essence running off 145. He's got some ability. He might just come back into this, and at kind of 16 to 20 to 1 around that price, I thought he could run well at the age of 8. I thought he's just got a good chance, but you can make a case out for loads of them. But Chris's Dream and Tue Permis would be my 2.
Yeah, and Davey, some interesting Irish raiders here. Gordon has one run in the race in the shape of Raven Hill.
Yeah, Raven Hill, he's been, great. He consistently runs well the whole time. He jumps fantastic. He handles most grounds, but not an extreme of ground. So that when Aintree gets heavy, it gets quite heavy. So that'll be a slight worry if the ground got really, really testing. But he's a good, solid horse. I also like Tom Lacey's horse, Kimberley Candy. I thought his performances last year were all consistent and, running well. And I don't think the ground inconvenienced him too much. Johnny Burke's on board. He's got plenty of experience over the fences. I think he, for me, could be a runner.
And Liam obviously doesn't fancy Tiger Roll at all in the 205. No, he's disappeared. Tiger Roll is a 16 to 1 chance. He might have an interesting campaign ahead, but we will stick with Davy and Bill for the final race they're going to look at. Protectorate, obviously fascinating here, stepping up and trick the sophomore chaser. We all know what Native River can produce. Imperial Aura 9 to 2, 6 to 1 bar. Davy, Tiger Roll has gone over. What shall we make of him? He's 16 to 1 with Star Sports.
He's in great form. He really is. I schooled him last week. He's bouncing, but the ground would have to be a slight worry for him. He maybe later on in years now he's getting to handle it a little bit better, but he's in great form. He'll run his race, whatever his race will be. He'll run it on Saturday. He's actually bouncing, so he is. So we'll have to wait and see. Regards the rest, I just, Imperial Aura, I don't know why I keep coming back to him. I think he has to win a big one at some stage. He beat me in Cheltenham in a handicap a couple of years ago, and I thought that he was going to make the step up to the next grade. He hasn't exactly done it yet, albeit being unlucky a couple of times. So for me, I'd try and stick with Imperial Aura to try and make the breakthrough.
Now, Bill, he's rated 165. I think this is complete nonsense from his owner, to be honest, to run him twice at Aintree over the wrong course. I don't know what the plan is. We're all hoping he runs back in the National as a 12-year-old, obviously, in April. What do you make of it?
Yeah, it's a good race. It holds up. The key for me is the trip. Everyone always thinks this is 3 miles. It's 3 miles too.
Will the Protectorate get it?
On rain softened ground. That's the concern. I don't know whether Protectorate will really see it out. If he does, he's the obvious one, but he's going to be short. I like Davy. I like Imperial Aura as a horse. I think he's got a huge engine. You just start to get worried with the form figures UPF. It sounds a bit like a courier rather than a racehorse. That's the worry with him. And it's a slightly quick period. It's only a couple of weeks since he had the spill last time. I thought he'd have a bit more time, but throughout the Becher Chase, he was the horse I was watching. He caught my eye. He traveled brilliantly throughout that until he made his mistake. So he's definitely of interest. But again, does he want to slog like this? I don't know. The ground will be fine, but whether he wants this, I don't know. Native River is the obvious one. It turned into a bit of a bumper last year, but he won't mind the rain. The Tizzards are in good form. We know he likes this track, and you know he is the one that I would go for of my main selection, because he's full of stamina, and it wouldn't have suited him last year when they moved all the fences out and it turned into a kind of 3.5 furlong bumper. It was never going to suit him, but his jumping and his rhythm is something that is just, you know,
that's fantastic to watch.
A real strength. So I would go for Native River as my main selection, but I'm going to go for a tiny small bit each way on the massive outsider, Wishing and Hoping, who's 80-1. And on form, he's got zero chance. I think everyone's about 66-1, but I think there is 80-1 out there. He won the Veterans Chase from the front here last time in really good style. He got into a really good rhythm, and he ran all the way to the line. And the worry is the ground, but I think it won't be terrible. But if it got really bad, it wouldn't be ideal for him. But he'll be the horse jumping and running upside with Native River. And I promise you, I think that when they turn for home, you'll be thinking this isn't a 66-1 chance. I think he'll run really well, because I think there's a few of these that are a bit more fragile than him and don't come in here with the same form. Simply the Bets might not stay. Protectorat might not stay. We don't know what Tiger will be like round the park fences. The Two Amigos shouldn't be running here because they're only running because they forgot to enter him in the Welsh National. Native River, we don't know if the fire still burns, and Imperial Aura might not be with him on the second circuit. So Wishing and Hoping is a huge price, and I think he'll run well. Okay, so briefly, my nap of the weekend is Shack and Poursois. What's yours? My nap of the weekend, let's see, you caught me on the hop there. I would say there's a couple of races at Sandown on TV. I'd just say I think DAVY and Mighty Don will run really well in the 3 o'clock race at Sandown. It's on TV, and there's a huge price one in the 3:35 at Sandown, again on TV. There's a horse called Zambezi Fizz. It's around 16-1. It runs in the handicap hurdle. I think he fell over fences last time, but he runs here off a hurdle mark that's even lower than his fence mark. But he could run. He's got just 10 stone 3 in the saddle over 2 miles in the finale at Sandown. I thought Zambezi Fizz each way at 16s, and David Pipe's horse Heure de Glare at the bottom at 20-1. I thought those two were a good bet, combined at 10-1 for the last at Sandown. Beautiful. Of course, we've gone way over the time because we've too much to talk about, including Ginto, who's one of your 5 rides, Davy, at Navan. You're having a great time with a hell of a book of rides at Navan, and the ground in December is going to be something like good.
Yeah, there's rain forecast coming from the west tonight. Hopefully it'll come, but
badly needed.
Yeah, badly needed. Yeah. So, but Navan has been riding safe. So hopefully it won't take that much rain to keep it that way. I think the wetter the conditions, the better chance Ginto will have. He's a lovely horse. He has Eric Bloodaxe to deal with, who is potentially a very good horse. So it's very much, it's a long ways from straightforward.
And very briefly, you're keeping well anyway. Everything's safe and all set to go for the season ahead.
Yeah, all is good now. Fingers crossed. Sounds the bell.
I thought he was mad. I was absolutely wrong. Brilliant to have him back. Thanks, Davy.
Thanks, Johnny.
And thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Johnny.
And that was the Zoom Room. And check out the website for all our special offers. And that was the Zoom Room with Star Sports.